make it easy to do the right thing as a guiding leadership principle. How can I, as a leader, and us as a team, try to make it easy to do the right things?
Right. Yep.
Can you give a concrete example of that one?
Well, there's so many. I'll give you a bank example. Federal banks, matter of fact, over 50% of all of their tasks was either Excel or Outlook. Now think about that. Over 50% of their work was just moving spreadsheets around the organization. That's difficult to do well, right? You're
Yeah.
guaranteed to have breakdowns along the way.
Welcome to Leading with Curiosity. Command and control leadership is dead. We interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and executive coaches challenging old paradigms and fostering cutting-edge leadership. Here's your host, certified executive coach, Nate Leslie.
Joe Bockerstette, welcome to the podcast.
Nate, it's great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
I've really enjoyed my research in advance and our pre-interview getting organized for this. Your latest book, your third of 3 books you've written in your career, it's called Red Cloud Road: How Strategic Process Management Drives Competitive Advantage. What are red clouds?
So red clouds are the problems and opportunities preventing you from achieving your intentions. Those are the things that get in the way of you as an executive or leader of a business getting results that you want out of your business.
You've focused this last number of years of your career on this, and essentially this is what your business does. Is tell us a little bit about a typical engagement with a client that'll help people understand what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my business enterprise mapping, specializes in documenting large swaths of workflow, department-wide workflows, marketing, sales, human resources, finance, order flow, order to cash, product development, the large, complicated workflows where management or leadership might say, I have no idea where to get started. This is overwhelming. This is intimidating. This is too complex. This is too messy. Like, we don't know how to fix this problem. That's what we do, right? And we have a methodology we call Paragon, which is a combination of the architecture, the tools we use, the way we engage with folks, and the seasoned professionals that we utilize in order to very quickly, effectively, and efficiently get that workflow mapped, diagnosed, understood, and then plans together on how to fix it going forward.
We'll get a little bit into your Paragon model in a minute. You mentioned a quote from a book from the 80s that
Right.
you have hung your hat on for a large part of your career, that every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets.
Yes, terrific quote. That comes out of a book by the name of Designing Organizations for High Performance. The author's David Hanna. And that quote goes back to the 80s, I believe. And the beauty of that quote is really twofold. If every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets, that means I can understand the reasons for the results my organization is getting that are less than I desire or less than optimal. There are
Mm-hmm.
always cause and effect relationships in results of an organization. All work is, or all value in an organization is delivered through the work that's performed, and understanding how that work is performed and what the red clouds are that associate with that helps leadership understand why we get the results it gets. So that's the first part of that quote that I think is so useful. The second part's a little bit different. The second part is, if we can understand the cause and effect relationships to the results we're getting, it becomes our responsibility to redesign that organization for different and better results. Right. So on the one hand, it's a breath of fresh air. We can now understand why. Secondly, though, now that we understand why, it's our responsibility to fix it.
Yeah, breath of fresh air. You used the word comforting earlier in our pre-interview.
Right.
We can find the reasons that you're getting the results that you're getting.
Every single time, without
Okay. Every
question.
single time we can get it. Now, then the work starts is how to fix it. Is
Right.
that right?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that work, I talk about this idea of red clouds. We capture hundreds of red clouds in most organizations, and we're able to parse those red clouds into what we call quick wins. And we know from experience about 50% all red clouds are quick wins, which can be addressed at lower levels of the organization rapidly and without a big budget or senior leadership approval. So it's the low hanging fruit that the people on the front line can fix themselves. And then there's the more systemic changes that come back to senior leadership, strategy, systems, performance measurements, defining deliverables for clients. There's a whole host of other things that bubble up, but you're able to categorize, slice, and dice all those red clouds to understand why things are happening the way they are and how we would go about addressing them at what level of what timeline.
So about 50% of the red clouds are quick wins, are things that people in the organization can fix without needing that hierarchical approval all the way up and then all the way back down. It's
Correct.
the low-hanging fruit that's right there. I mean, that inspires the part in me that invites people who choose to lead, to take ownership, to find ways to influence. And you're saying half of organizations' problems are right there in front of the people closest to the work to fix it. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it tends to be systemic cultural things that we've always accepted as the way things are without
Mm,
really questioning if they need to be that way. I'll give you one really extreme
yeah.
example. We've worked with a couple of different police departments, for example, over
Mm,
the years.
okay.
And we worked with one PD that had a full warehouse of evidence bursting at the seams. They had on the books to add another warehouse to take on the growth for 7 million was the number, right? We mapped that process. We questioned the methodology for what they were saving as evidence. What's the law required? What's the practice? Well, we know this is the way it's got to be. So we researched it with that PD client, only to discover that they were saving far, far, far more evidence than was necessary, far longer than was necessary. So
Mm,
basically, they were creating warehouses of unnecessary goods that were serving no purpose in the long run. Out of that exercise, eliminated the need for an additional warehouse, right? And the
there's
whole
your
reality,
ROI. There's your $7 million savings right there.
a quick win, right? Right. There are physical reasons things need to be done in a lot of cases, but there are mental reasons that we're doing things that if we rethought that mental background, we would realize we don't really need to do that. Right. And there's a lot of that constriction in organizations where we think we need to do something or we think we're producing something that's adding value. It turns out it isn't what we thought it was.
I mean, to be really blunt, you've got a police department hoarding evidence because they think that they're supposed to, and in
They
fact,
thought they were
they
supposed
didn't
to
need to.
without actually having factual basis for what they were doing.
Yeah, that's
But
so I
that's an extreme
imagine.
example, admittedly.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's the idea is mentally we were constrained by something we thought, a paradigm that we thought was true. Turns out it wasn't true.
right.
There's a
Yeah,
lot of that in organizations.
yeah, because we've always done it this way is probably a something you hear
And we
from time
assume
to
there's a
time, to
good
say the
reason,
least.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So would you say that these low-hanging fruit is often in the common sense realm that once you dig into
Precisely.
it and never
Right.
uncover it, it's not engineering level work. It's often,
No, it's intellectual in
yeah.
general, right? We're doing something that we don't need to do, or we're doing something differently than we ought to be doing it, or we're not talking to the customer of what we're providing to see if this is actually meeting their needs, right? And when I talk about mapping large swaths of workflow really rapidly, we are excellent at looking at the alignment or disconnects between people, work, processes, subsequent processes, what you're ultimately doing to satisfy your end customer. Many of these 50% of these quick wins come in dropping the balls between workflows, right? Between departments, between desks, between processes. And so much of that is sort of the intellectual downfall of lack of alignment, connectivity, teaming, right? We bring people together to look at the whole department as a whole. Lots of elements of the way we do our work in order to address those differences in alignment and communication that you find in really any large businesses.
Tell me about this idea that you often find different people doing the same things in different ways. Why
You
is that
do.
a problem?
Yeah. So you asked me earlier, what's the one of the primary causes of bad workflow? Well, that's one of the primary causes of bad workflow. I may have, I'll take order entry as that's a really common process. I may have order entry in 6 different locations, and each of those locations does that in a different way. And the cost of that is enormous. I have it, the inability to scale comes with that. So I have waste involved in those 6 different ways. I have difficulty in training people because now I don't have one common way. I have difficulty in scaling because I can't do it 6 ways and double my size, right? And so there are standard foundational work processes in any organization, right? Order entry process, a shipping process, a customer acquisition process, a hiring process. You can go on and on. There's maybe 100 or so in every organization.
Hmm.
And part of the idea of designing the organization for the results you desire is standardizing those in a way that people can win at executing them. Saying different people doing the same thing the same ways, which allows you to scale, allows you to be more efficient, allows you to manage the outcomes better, allows you to satisfy customers in a more beneficial way.
Let's use a really practical example again. I know your family loves to golf. Your daughter's a big golfer. Let's say someone comes to a big golf event and they're going to play, and it's so big that there's multiple registration tables, and so you and your family go to one registration table. My daughter and I go to another. What's an example of things they might be doing differently at each of those registration tables that is this idea of different people doing the same things different ways that
I'll give you a great example. This is really common is I have different data input procedures at each of those tables, right? So it goes into, let's say, a simple CRM, but I'm collecting that data 7 different ways at 7 different tables. I have 7 different levels of completeness. I have 7 different ways that I might type in the address. I have 7 different ways that I'm capturing or not capturing some information. So now at the end of that tournament, I've collected, let's say, 200 names in 7 different ways. So I can't compare apples to oranges to grapes to pears
yeah.
because some's incomplete, some's complete. This one field is done in 7 different ways. And so it creates chaos down the road, right? Now I want
Yeah.
to bill, let's say, but I don't know how to bill or don't know who to bill because the data's not clean, right? Many of the workflows that we look at start with inadequate data collection on the front end, getting pushed through all the way to the back end. And where does that end up? In invoices that are difficult to collect.
Yeah,
Now
good
I've got
example.
old receivables because my customer data was bad or my shipping data was bad. And all of that originated 4 or 5 processes up the road, but it just kept getting pushed through the system until it became a problem at the end. Really a common
Right.
workflow
So if you
challenge.
went into that, if that golf tournament was your client, you'd go in and you might start with this messy data and say, oh my God, how did we get to here? And then you might go kind of upstream from there and trace it all the way
That's right.
back to those
Right.
seven
So
different registration tables.
let's just play that out a little bit. So we go back upstream, we realize that's the cause of that effect. Now I'm going to start with a single template for the standard data collection that's going to take place at every table. That's my first step, right? Then I might automate that on an iPad, let's say, where I can only put in that data properly. You see how you go from a design that gets the result I am unhappy with to a design that fundamentally requires the results that I want to get at the end of the day, right?
Hmm.
And and it can't get into my system unless it's accurate, complete, and timely. That we use that terminology a lot, ACT, accurate, complete, and timely.
Now, I imagine if we think about this through a lens of leadership,
Mhm.
your organization's come in, we've identified this. There's somebody in that organization so frustrated that says, I would love to help clean that up. And then in there comes more engagement and deeper commitment
Right.
and improvements to culture, right? Tell me about leveraging the humans that are already there and how this can change their lives in a positive way that benefits the company.
Yeah, so there tends to be 2 types of players and organizations that may want to embark on addressing this issue. There's the department head, typically a senior leadership, C-suite kind of person. Head of product development's a great example that says, I got a problem. I don't know how to solve it. I got a budget. We got to fix this thing, right? And ideally, they just like to pay money for a solution, but it's never that simple, right?
Hmm.
And so that person commissions a project, if you will, to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. We've worked in some of the largest, most complex product development companies in the world. So I know this problem well, with many, many, many processes and tons of complexity, right? So how do I get my arms around this? They then tend to look to a practitioner of some kind who goes out and seeks methodologies, tools, service firms. They seek a solution to that problem, right? And we match up well in that search when we're complicated, we're intimidated, we don't know what to do, we don't know how to get started. And that practitioner looks at our methodology, Paragon, and says, okay, this is what these guys do for a living, right? And so it starts with sort of unfolding or deconstructing the work itself at the highest level, and then you progressively move deeper down into the front desk areas to actually understand how they do the work and what the red clouds are.
What is a metaphor or example for a listener who's a manager, a director, a leader in an organization, responsible for a team, has to work cross-functionally with others, and has zero budget? What of this paradigm, your way of viewing the challenge, could someone listening say, for $0, I can start doing things better? Where would they start?
Well, so I'll give you, if not quite zero, but I'll give you a start. So, of course, from our point of view, you can buy the book, which lays all of this out really well, but that's a little overwhelming to get started, right? We actually offer a 1 week training course in how to map a business using our Paragon method. So, anybody, it's a public course, anybody can take the course. It's, I think, 4,000, so it's not quite free, but it is an inexpensive way to get started, right? And we will share with you how we do what we do and sort of the fundamentals of how the methodology works. Frequently, folks do that and then say, "Oh, I just really need to hire professionals, right, to go
Yeah,
get this done."
yeah,
But
yeah.
I will also say this: all of the best clients we work with, we end up training an internal group to take the ball and run with it. Like we're very much a teach you to fish firm. We will do
Nice.
AB1, train up some of your people, teach you how to do it for yourself, and then let you take the ball and run with it.
Nice. That's a really practical example how they can get involved. And in the two quotes are that are sticking out with me here. Well, actually there's three. Two of them we've covered. For a leader to simply look for different people doing the same things different ways. Where are
Yes,
we, really even at a micro level, where are we doing things differently? Person A, person B. And how do we get them on the same page? Right? This admission of guilt that we as an organization are perfectly designed to be getting the results that we're getting. That means, yeah, no wonder it is what it is.
right.
This is how we're
Exactly.
set
It's
up.
like, well, no wonder we're not happy with the results. Here are the reasons behind it, right? Now, they
Yeah.
can be politically uncomfortable at times. But again, if you think of the design of work as the foundation for performance, you can always break it down to what are we doing well or not well? Are we making it easy to do the right thing or difficult for our people to do the right thing in moving work through the organization to add ultimate value to the customer, right?
That's the third one, that make it easy to do the right thing as a guiding leadership principle. How can I as a leader and us as a team try to make it easy to do the right things?
Right. Yep.
Can you give a concrete example of that one?
Oh, there's so many. I'll give you a bad example. Federal banks, as a matter of fact. Over 50% of all of their tasks was either Excel or Outlook. Now think about that. Over 50% of their work was just moving spreadsheets around the organization. That's difficult to do well, right? You're
Yeah.
guaranteed to breakdowns along the way. Now the redesign of that, right? And they've got a what you would call an ERP system, right? The problem is you just don't use it very well because they got all these red clouds related to how to use it, right? And to facilitate the work being done. Because it doesn't match up well with their needs, they do all these workarounds. So I end up with a very labor intensive Excel Outlook spreadsheet system that gets the work done, but not very efficient.
So they're either moving numbers in a spreadsheet or emailing somebody or
Or
receiving an
emailing,
email,
exactly.
50% of their work. So this is maybe an example. I am involved, part owner of an overnight summer camp. I've been involved in
Mhm.
almost 20 years. Couple
Yeah,
of years ago, we just had too many spreadsheets, and we said there's got to be a better way, right? We were
right.
growing that way, and I was the only one that knew exactly where all the spreadsheets were, et cetera. And then you realize that there's an old one that you forgot about. And so we invested in an overnight summer camp software that changed our lives. I'm a raving fan. I've interviewed the CEO on this podcast, the Campminder, they're called. And we made a rule for ourselves. If it can be done in Campminder, that's the only place it gets done, which
Mhm.
seems obvious, but we had all these old habits and behaviors of, oh, why don't we just use a Google Sheet for that? Then other people can see it. But as a principle, no, if Campminder can handle it, that's where it's going to happen. Is that, I mean, a basic example of
Yeah.
something that you might
So
come across?
so what often happens, number one, a lot of these ERP systems are old, right? Because they're expensive and we didn't want to spend money to upgrade. But number two, because we didn't have a good understanding of our business model going into this, we accepted whatever the software vendor said the switches ought to be. So we've got a software system that wants us to conform to how the system works versus a system that's designed to enable the way we need to do business better. And when that disconnect comes full front, we end up doing workarounds,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's how you end up with it with sort of unnecessary inefficiency by not syncing up the technology with the actual business model need.
What is, this is a random question. What is the ideal personality profile, or what is your personality in terms of detail oriented, or what makes for a great consultant in your line of work?
That's a great question. So I'm not actually a great consultant in my line of work. I've got people that do the mapping. So what I say, we have very senior people, number one. All of our people are in the backside of their careers, ex-CEOs, ex-IT directors, like been there, done that, right? So
Yeah,
we know how to run meetings well because everything we do is in a facilitated meeting. We don't map it through interviews. We don't do it like this and go off and draw them up and see how we did. We
yeah.
actually map real time during while we're facilitating the room. So we put our templates on a screen and we map while they're talking. So people
Wow.
see right
Okay. Yeah,
immediately what they're seeing. So number one, we know how to facilitate a meeting. Number two, we know how to handle conflict because you're not everybody in the room wants to be in the room. Certainly at first, we know that we use Visio as our tool, as our mapping tool. So we have to know the technology of Visio. We have to know the conventions of how to build our maps. We have very standard. You might imagine we're very process driven, very standardized, right? So you have to know how to build a standard map with us. So it's the kind of person that likes the detail, but also has the business seasoning. They got to know what they're seeing, right? Like you've got to know what to expect in a hiring process, just to pick a different example, or in a maintenance work order, or in a prospecting prospect, or in a lead generation, right? You got to know what you're hearing. Lots of times, clients need us to help them complete that process in a more fully executable way. Like
yeah,
it, virtually every client we work with, well, we don't have that process and we need it. Can you help us build that? And of course, yes. So the ideal person is a person that likes to sort of hang out in those low level details,
yeah.
right, while still being able to look at the bigger picture. I'm much more conceptual guy than that. I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, you need the
But
details, but you gotta have the
yeah,
systems awareness and the
you
business
do.
experience. But the first two things you mentioned, facilitating a great meeting
Right.
and being able to handle conflict, where even though it's a process-driven
Essential.
business, those first two are people-focused.
They are people focused, and we would never, for instance, hire a junior person for that reason. I'm not saying you can't. I'm
Yeah,
saying our business model is built around very seasoned senior people who know how to handle conflict, run a meeting, use our methodology, know the business process that we're mapping, and understand the context of what we're trying to
yeah,
accomplish.
yeah,
Ultimately, the work we do is much more strategic than tactical, right?
yeah.
We're documenting the tactical, but the learnings, the to dos, the where we go from here all ends up being part of strategy.
Yeah, it's about getting you from where you are now, just like coaching, getting you from
It
where you
is
are now to where you wanna be, and in between there, is the work that needs to get done, but it's,
precisely,
kind of
precisely.
it's
Now,
a
one of the
beat.
benefits of our work is because we're engaging people from the very beginning. We start to change management process the day we should work with the client. So that's
Yeah.
fun. And so you start working through all the disruption of change immediately, and you're working alongside client folks in their process of self-discovery. So it's not unusual to start out skeptical, bit resistant, confused, frustrated, and halfway through or two-thirds of the way through, it's like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, right? Because now I get it. Now I understand why things don't go the way I want them to, and what we can do differently to get better outcomes.
Yeah. Do you remember where you come up with Red Cloud? Why red? Remember
That
how that
predates
came
me,
about?
so that's a great
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
When I came to the business in 2013, and the business started in '93. That the entire, I was saying entire, the core of the methodology was in place before I joined the firm. I just added some of the additional things that we've talked
Yeah.
about today. But
The
it's a
visual I'm
great
getting is
term, right?
red. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
connected with tension and frustration and like
precisely. Red
heated
clouds,
emotion.
clouds
Yeah.
overhanging,
Yeah.
right? Like these are the things overhanging that are preventing us from happiness, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're not the bright, beautiful, puffy clouds. The book where people can get started is Red Cloud Road, How Strategic Process Management Drives Competitive Advantage. We'll link to that in the show notes. Joe, where can people find you?
So our website is www.businessmapping.com, and it's easy to reach me through there. We've got a tremendous amount of research and reference information on the website. We have, I don't know, 400 blogs or something on it with a lot of information, and you can get a real good understanding of what we're trying to achieve there.
Enjoy the onset of beautiful fall in Phoenix, Arizona, while
Thank
I
you. It's a
get ready
beautiful
for
time to
rain
be
here in
here.
Vancouver.
Right. You get probably color change on leaves that we don't get, but it's a
Yeah, that's
beautiful
right.
time to be here. So thank you.
Okay, great to have you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Leading with Curiosity. Please share, follow, and rate the show so that other leaders can make positive change in the world. Connect with Nate at nateleslie.ca. And remember, the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen.